Marquise felt like Boosie was looking at him crazy and walked over there and hit him, punched him.
Vlad, bro. This on Vlad TV lying, bro. And this lying. You know Big Marquise knock your teeth out. Hit him with a two-piece. Bow, bow.
The name Big Marky might not ring a bell for everyone, but in the streets of Baton Rouge, he was a legend. People called him Mr. Two-Piece because his punch was known to be seriously powerful. Stories say it once even knocked out Boogie's teeth. Some in the city whispered that Marky was Boogie's worst nightmare. But soon things took a dark turn. Tension started bubbling, and the streets did what they always do. They turned cold. Not long after, Nussie was gone. And then, Big Marky too. Let's break down how it all started. Marky came out of South Baton Rouge, a place where reputation wasn't just a word, it was survival. He learned early that every move mattered, and he built his name piece by piece. Standing at 6'2", weighing around 250 pounds, with wide shoulders and a solid frame, he looked like the kind of man no one wanted to test. But here's the thing, Marky wasn't just brawn. He was smart, careful, and always thinking ahead. He understood how the streets operated, moving quietly but effectively. Music played a role in his life, but it wasn't his way out. It was just part of his world. He was connected with a local group known as Dope Celebrity Family, DCF. But unlike others chasing fame or a record deal, Marky kept his eyes on real-life respect.
Mr. Two-Piece. And
Because of the...
because he really would two-piece you up. Like, he was one hitter. Like, he'll hit you with a two-piece and it was over with. So that was his.
Not just popularity. That's where his name, Mr. Two-Piece, came from. Straight out of Baton Rouge nightlife. When things got tense, they didn't drag out. Marky handled problems fast and clean. He earned a reputation as a one-hitter quitter. If someone stepped out of line, they didn't get a long talk. They got checked. Most people didn't even remember falling. They just wake up wondering what happened. Over time, that nickname stopped being a joke and became a serious warning. But Marky didn't move solo. He had people around him. His closest was Chris Jackson, better known as Nussie. These two were tight, but they were total opposites. Where Marky was quiet and intimidating, Nussie was bold, flashy, and loud. He made waves in the rap scene, but not in the way the Baton Rouge music game liked. Nussie wasn't afraid to break rules or ignore street politics, and that attitude made a lot of people uncomfortable. Together, Marky and Nussie represented the side of Baton Rouge that refused to play by anyone's rules. Back then, Trill Entertainment was running the show.
Big Marquise a long time too. He was another rapper, another street trying to get in, as trying to become a rapper, because he had talent and he may have the resources, but he was a hustler.
They controlled the city's sound and most of its respect in the industry. If you weren't part of that movement, you were automatically seen as competition. But Marky and Nussie didn't back down or bow to anyone. To outsiders, it might have looked like their tension with Boosie and his circle came from music or ego, but that wasn't the full story. The problems went way deeper than rap. To really understand why everything spiraled, we have to go back to April 3rd, 2005, a date that completely changed Baton Rouge. That night marked a turning point. Ivy Smith, better known as Lil Ivy, wasn't just Boogie's close friend.
He really did like Boosie. Nussie liked him. Yeah. And he had a mutual respect for Nussie. It was never any beef. It was his entourage that was always extra with it. Boosie never said anything. He never did anything. But his entourage always was on.
He was Boogie's backbone, his right-hand man, the muscle behind Badazz Entertainment. Ivy was the one who founded TBG, Top Boy Gorilla. That night, at a spot called Club Shenanigans, things went left fast. A fight broke out inside. One of those wild moments that usually ends with bruised pride and a few busted lips. But this time, it didn't stop there. Later that night, a car carrying Lil Ivy, Kevin Ace Henderson, and Joshua Thomas got ambushed. Gunfire ripped through the vehicle, leaving all three men gone by the end of the night. After that, Baton Rouge hip-hop was never the same again. Boosie was devastated, and the streets started buzzing instantly. Whispers flew everywhere. People started naming names, saying DCF, Nussie, and even Marky's crew might have had something to do with it. Whether those rumors were facts or lies didn't even matter, because in Baton Rouge, perception is reality. Some said they were connected, others claimed they were disrespecting Ivy's name after his passing, and that alone was enough to put a target on your back. From that moment on, Marky and Nussie were treated like enemies just for who they were standing next to. Once that line got drawn, there was no middle ground left. The whole city split right down the center. You were either TBG or you were BBG and DCF. No in between, no fence sitting. Everyone in the streets knew a storm was coming. It was just a matter of where and when. That tension sat over the city like a heavy cloud, waiting for a single spark to set everything off. And that spark finally showed up one wild night at a club called Fahrenheit. Back then, Fahrenheit was the spot. The place where dealers, rappers, hustlers, and street bosses all mixed under the same roof. If you were somebody in Baton Rouge, you passed through those doors. That night, Boosie and Boaz were inside, riding high at the peak of their fame. Their music was running the city, money was flowing, and security was thick. Confidence was through the roof. But here's where it turned up. Big Marky was in the same building, rolling deep with DCF. Just him being there changed the whole vibe instantly. According to people who witnessed it, and later backed up by Big Dana from DCF, the atmosphere flipped in seconds.
All new tonight from Baton Rouge, a prosecutor says rapper Lil Boosie hired a hitman to kill another man after hearing his life was...
Marky caught Boosie looking his way with that certain kind of stare, and in their world, a look wasn't just a look. It meant something. One glance could spark a whole war. So here's how it went down. Marky didn't hesitate for a second. He walked straight up to Boosie and let his hands fly. 2 clean shots to the face. Exactly the kind of move his reputation had been built on. Boosie, way smaller than Marky, took both hits full force before anyone could even blink. The impact froze the whole room. Silence dropped heavy inside that club. What happened next turned into street legend. Some said Boosie's diamond grill flew straight out of his mouth. Others claimed 2 real teeth got knocked loose. Either way,
His teeth got knocked out or whatever. He had a grill in his mouth.
the message was clear. A respected street figure had just put hands on the city's biggest rapper right in front of everyone. By any normal logic, that night should have exploded into total chaos. But somehow, it didn't. Whatever reason, nobody touched Marky. He walked right out the front door, calm and alive, while everyone else just stood in shock. And here's the thing, Marky didn't try to hide afterward. He didn't run, didn't make excuses, he owned it. He even leaned into the story, turning that moment into music. Not long after, he dropped a track with Big Ram called 2 Piece, flipping that punch into a full-blown statement. The song wasn't subtle at all. It was bold, loud, and direct. It celebrated his reputation, his hands, and sent a clear message. No one was untouchable, no matter how big their name was. For everyone who already felt pushed aside or overlooked by TBG, Marky became a symbol. The man who humbled the top dog. He proved that fame and power didn't make you bulletproof to real-life respect. But the thing is, once that moment happened, there was no going back. Baton Rouge was already filled with tension over Lil Ivy's death, and that punch made it 10 times worse. That incident didn't just heat things up, it ignited the fire. From then on, DCF became marked targets. Word spread that Boosie made a decision after that night. Anyone rumored to be tied to Ivy's passing or connected to DCF was fair game. Marky had embarrassed Boosie in the most public way possible. But while Marky fought with his fists, Nussie hit from a completely different direction. Marky's 2-piece was a physical move, but Nussie's strategy, it was mental warfare. According to people close to both camps, Nussie and Boosie actually shared a level of mutual respect. They weren't friends, not even close, but they understood each other's power. The real problem was everything around them. The street politics, the constant tension, the voices in their ear hyping things up. Boosie's circle, known for being protective and ready to move at any moment, made things even more unstable. And eventually, it all boiled over. Once that pressure exploded, Nussie went all in. No filter, no holding back. He started calling Boosie out by name, mocking his image, twisting his reputation, and taking it to places that cut deep. He didn't just throw lyrical shots. He attacked Boosie's pride and everything he stood for. But when Nussie started mentioning people who had passed, that's when things crossed the line. It wasn't just a rap beef anymore. It turned personal, emotional, and irreversible. That's when everyone knew it was only a matter of time before something tragic followed. Then came the track that flipped everything upside down, Nussie Badazz. Just the name alone was a straight-up slap to the face. Nussie dropped it like he had something to prove, brushing off questions in interviews, saying things like, "It ain't no beef like that," while at the same time dropping songs that threw shade at Boosie's reputation in the streets. Then came street gossip, and that's where things crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. On that record, Nussie allegedly called Boosie a rat, a word that, in street code, can get somebody seriously hurt or worse. But Nussie didn't stop there. He even mocked the passing of Lil Ivy, the man whose death had already divided the whole city. Outside the studio, Nussie carried that same wild energy. He walked through Baton Rouge like he was untouchable, like no consequence could reach him. He started printing shirts with airbrushed tombstones and even held one up in public that said, "Rest in peace. Who's next?" That move made the tension in Baton Rouge almost unbearable. According to street whispers, money started moving, the kind of money that made people listen real close. Later on, even federal investigators got tips suggesting that Boosie had allegedly put a $30,000 bounty on Nussie's head. But Boosie wasn't going to move on it himself. He didn't need to. By 2009, he had people around him who would do whatever it took to prove their loyalty. One of them was a young guy named Michael Marlowe Mike Louting, who was just 16 or 17 at the time. He wasn't some seasoned veteran. He was a kid, unpredictable and reckless, already known for acting out without thinking. Police would later describe him as a rogue gunman, someone who claimed to hear voices telling him to hurt people. That made him unpredictable, and in the wrong hands, dangerous. What made it even sadder was how Marlowe Mike looked up to Boosie. He saw him like a mentor or father figure. Boosie had even signed school paperwork to act as the teen's guardian. But this wasn't about guidance or growth, it was about loyalty and control. So when the call came through, Marlowe didn't hesitate. On February 9th, 2009, all the talking ended for good. That night, Nussie was at a house on America Street in Baton Rouge's mid-city area. It seemed like any other night, calm, regular, until just after 11:24 p.m. when gunshots ripped through the silence. According to confessions that came later, Marlowe Mike wasn't alone that night. He was reportedly with Michael Ghost Judson, a name well known in the Badazz circle. Ghost was said to be the setup man. He lifted Marlowe Mike up to a window, giving him a clear view. Inside, Nussie never saw it coming. One shot rang out. It hit him in the head. Just like that, Nussie was gone at only 33 years old. The city lit up with rumors immediately. Word spread faster than police could even respond. The streets were saying the same thing. Boosie got him! People claimed the bag had been dropped, and truth be told, nobody was shocked. Everyone had felt like it was coming. They just didn't know when. When Marlowe Mike was eventually arrested, what he told detectives made the whole story even darker. He claimed Boosie had paid Ghost $15,000 for the hit, while Marlowe himself got just $2,000. That right there showed how young and disposable he really was. He had risked everything for pocket change and misplaced loyalty, but the most haunting piece wasn't the money. It was what came after. Just 2 weeks after Nussie's death, Marlowe Mike sat in a tattoo chair and got an AK-47 inked across his stomach. Right beside it were the words that shocked everyone. "Yo, Boosie, who's next?" That tattoo said everything. No hesitation, no guilt, just pride in what had been done. It was like a confession carved into his skin, proof of how deep things had gone and how far the violence had stretched. A teenager had become a weapon in a street war that had been building for years, and by the time it was all over, Baton Rouge had crossed a line it could never take back. After Nussie was gone, everything in Baton Rouge flipped fast, and it flipped hard. Boosie was now sitting at the top of his game, the most powerful he had ever been. But that spotlight he loved so much came with a whole lot of heat. Law enforcement wasn't guessing anymore. They were watching closely. Piece by piece, they were stacking up evidence, quietly building what would soon become a capital murder case. But before any indictments hit, before those walls started closing in, Boosie did what he always did best. He went straight back to the booth. He dropped a track with Hurricane Chris called Limelight, and anyone who understood Baton Rouge street politics caught the message instantly. In the song, one line stood out like a warning shot. Boosie rapped, "Dude tried to kill me. After that, a dude stole my name. Feelings gone. Ain't no love in my body. Marlowe Mike up in the backseat begging for a body." Everyone in Baton Rouge knew exactly who that was about. The stole my name part, that was a direct jab at Nussie Badazz. No debate about it. And that bar about Marlowe Mike in the backseat begging for a body, that hit different. It sounded less like a lyric and more like real life spilling onto a record, but the tragedy didn't stop there, and it didn't end with music either. That's where Big Marky's story came crashing back into the picture. Years later, insiders like Big Dana from DCF started speaking up, revealing what had really been going on behind the scenes. According to them, Nussie's death wasn't just about diss tracks or ego, it went much deeper, all the way back to Lil Ivy's death. Word in the streets was that Boosie had allegedly put out a green light, an open call that anyone connected to Ivy's murder, even loosely, was fair game. And once something like that gets set in motion, there's no taking it back. There's no recall button, no cancel code. As Big Dana put it, even if Boosie and Nussie had ever squashed it personally, it wouldn't have mattered. The streets had already made their decision. Once that kind of button is pressed, it moves on its own, like a missile already in the air. And that's where Big Marky stepped back into focus. Nussie, the loudest voice of that rivalry, was gone, silenced by a teenager with nothing to lose and everything to prove. But the attention didn't fade. It just shifted. Now the spotlight turned from rappers to muscle. Marky had done something few would dare. He'd embarrassed Boosie in front of the entire city and walked away still breathing. But in Baton Rouge, surviving the moment doesn't mean you've survived the aftermath. Every win in the streets comes with a price tag, and sooner or later, that debt gets collected. At the same time, police were tightening the net around Marlo Mike. They started connecting him to multiple violent crimes, including Nussie, Marcus Thomas, and Terry Boyd. But here's the thing, Marlo Mike wasn't the only one with a rep for doing serious damage. Another name started surfacing, Damian Williams, better known as Short Mane. Unlike others, Short Mane wasn't reckless, loud, or looking for fame. He didn't show off or run his mouth. He was quiet, disciplined, and respected because he handled business. Inside TBG, he wasn't just another name, he was considered royalty. By the age of 18, Short Mane was already signed to Badazz Entertainment. Not because he was chasing rap stardom, but because in that world, loyalty and muscle mattered just as much as music. While Marlo Mike was out handling loud headline-making work against rappers and known enemies, Short Mane's lane was different, quiet, surgical, and final. He handled business that didn't need to be explained. That unpaid bill from the Fahrenheit Club incident finally came due on July 24, 2009. 5 long months had passed since Nussie was killed on America Street, but Baton Rouge hadn't cooled down one bit. The tension hung in the air. That eerie calm before chaos, when everybody knows something bad is coming but no one knows when. That Friday, Big Marky was sitting in a car on the 6700 block of Suzanne Avenue. He was 31 years old, still carrying the same street respect that made his name legendary. According to both police reports and word from the streets, the hit was clean and direct. Short Mane allegedly pulled up with at least one other person, and Marky was shot right there in the vehicle. No warning, no back and forth, just quick and final. Police moved fast on the case. They called it retaliation, payback for an earlier shooting that supposedly involved Marky and someone tied to Boosie's camp. On paper, that made for an easy headline. But in the streets, everyone knew better. This wasn't random. This was the final receipt for that two-piece that had embarrassed Boosie years earlier. Over a year later, in October 2010, police finally arrested Short Mane and charged him with second-degree murder and illegal use of a firearm. But if the system thought Short Mane was going to break, they didn't know him at all. He did exactly what everyone expected. He stayed silent. He didn't fold, didn't cooperate, and didn't hand over a single piece of information. Witnesses started disappearing, stories changed overnight, and evidence grew thinner by the week. Eventually, prosecutors had nothing solid left to hold him on. The murder charges tied to Big Marky's death were dropped and Short Mane walked free. He beat the case, at least officially. The man accused of taking out the one who once laid hands on Boosie walked away clean. For a moment, it looked like he had outsmarted both the law and the streets. But in Baton Rouge, no victory lasts forever, because the streets never forget. By 2013, Short Mane's name popped back up again, this time for something just as brutal. Reports said he was involved in a violent kidnapping and robbery in the Glen Oaks area. A man was allegedly forced into a vehicle, robbed, and shot 3 times while trying to get away. But this time, there were no disappearing witnesses or shaky testimonies. The case stuck. When the verdict came down, Short Mane was sentenced to 40 to 60 years in prison. That was it. No appeals, no last-minute twist. The man who once represented quiet power inside TBG was now locked away for decades. With Big Marky gone, the last loose end from that night at Club Fahrenheit was finally tied off. The cycle had come full circle. Every major name tied to that moment had met their fate. And just like before, Boosie didn't let that moment slide quietly. On his track, Untouchable, he dropped a bar that hit like a gravestone. Not just a lyric, but a message carved in sound. It was his way of saying, the story had come to an end, and he was still standing. Boosie didn't stay quiet after everything went down. He made sure his message was heard loud and clear. On his track, he sent a warning straight to the city. Keep your hands to yourself. It'll get ugly, B. All that Mr. Two-Piece talk, it's over with. It was sharp, cold, and final. The street's version of closing a chapter for good. But the most haunting part of Big Marky's story isn't the punch that made him famous or even the way his life ended. It's what he said before it all came crashing down. In rare footage recorded not long before his death, Marky looked straight into the camera, calm, real, and unfiltered. and said, "You have to take it seriously, or it'll get taken from you faster than you expect." Then the interviewer asked the question that hit deepest. Did he think he'd make it out alive? Marky paused, just for a second. But that hesitation said everything. He knew the game too well, knew how it always ended for people who played too close to danger in Baton Rouge. There's no retirement plan in that world. You don't just walk away. You either get locked up or you get removed. And as for Boosie, despite everything stacked against him, he eventually beat the capital murder charges and walked free. The case that once threatened to take his entire career turned into another chapter in a story filled with chaos, fame, and survival. Big Marky's legend still echoes through Baton Rouge, not just for the punch, but for the warning he left behind. His story is a reminder of how fast everything can flip when street pride and real life collide. If you found this story wild, hit that like button, drop a comment on what shocked you the most, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into hip-hop's craziest real-life tales. See you in the next video.